today we've got a testimony from that young fellow that the book that his father wrote about him sold well over 1 million copies, a national bestseller week after week. Colin Burpo, he went to heaven, came back, says we're going to like it. Well, I think
it's so precious because
really
it's just so childlikely innocent.
Well, Terry, this week has just been touching people's lives, and ladies and gentlemen, more and more about what happens when you die. Where do we go? What is it like? People who've actually been to heaven, people who've actually seen hell. These are not put-up stories. These are not actors or actresses. These are the real things, and I think you'll find it fascinating. We ask ourselves, what's going on in the weather? You know, everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. But what about it? Is this some sinister trend? Is this global warming? Is it just natural phenomenon? But whatever it is, this last hurricane has certainly lived up to his reputation as a superstorm, the biggest in maybe, say, 1,000 years. The death toll is now more than 70, which is small, tragic, but nothing like it could have been. But the losses are at least $50 million, and some estimates, as I said, have already estimated as high as $100 million when it's all totaled up.
Well, Sandy was 1,000 miles wide, but the New York, New Jersey area was the hardest hit. The picture's incredible. Efrem Graham looks at the road to recovery.
New signs of normalcy today in the Big Apple. Public transit is slowly coming to life. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo authorized the Mass Transit Authority to waive all train and bus fares until the weekend. A few subways are back up and running today, at least some of them. 46 miles of track are still underwater. Lights are beginning to turn on in areas around Wall Street, but Con Edison says Lower Manhattan will remain in the dark at least through the weekend. As New York slowly rebounds, New Jersey struggles to move forward.
The whole neighborhood next door burnt totally to the ground. So, you know, we don't know. It's the unknown that's really upsetting.
Our home was down on 12th Street North, and we heard that that part of the island took a huge hit. We haven't been able to make it back there yet, so pretty much we're just looking at complete loss.
Seaside Heights is just devastated. Like a tsunami, it just came in and knocked buildings down.
Residents are confronted with destroyed homes and, in some cases, towns. No electricity, food, or water, and dangerous conditions. A new concern today in that area, natural gas leaks that turn into destructive fires.
There were all these gas trucks. You got down the block, we got down the block. Why can't we get gas trucks down the block?
Everywhere you go, you hear shh, just the gas, all the open gas lines going, just scared to death.
Operation Blessing is in Bayville, New Jersey. Volunteers teamed up with an area church to go out and begin evaluating and assessing needs of local residents.
When the need is greater than my local congregation can meet, there is a body of Christ that is united across the nation and across the globe. So we're so thankful for Operation Blessing. We're so thankful for other organizations that come to assist in times of crisis.
Efrem Graham, CBN News.
Thanks, Efrem. If you want to participate with Operation Blessing and helping what we can, there are people who are still struggling a great deal and suffering a great deal. You can log on to CBN Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, or you can call 1-800-759-0700 and designate what you're going to do for the Northeast recovery. Well, after inspecting the damage from Sandy yesterday, President Obama is back on the campaign trail. Lee Webb tells where the president and Mitt Romney are headed. Here's Lee.
Pat, both candidates are visiting the key battleground states. No surprise there. The president is traveling to Wisconsin, Nevada, and Colorado. Mitt Romney, meanwhile, will spend the day and night in Virginia. Romney returned to normal campaigning in Florida Wednesday, but political observers say the storm and its aftermath did alter the tone of his speech. He didn't criticize the president or mention him by name.
Look, we can't go on the road we're on. We can't change course in America if we keep on attacking each other. We have got to come together and get America on track again.
And with just 5 days before the election, polls show the race is a dead heat. Jennifer Wishon sat down with election expert Brian Darling of the Heritage Foundation, and they talked about some of the unusual possibilities for this year's race.
You know, these candidates have said this race is going to be close from the very beginning, and boy, were they right. Could we have a candidate who wins the popular vote in the election but does not end up being president of the United States.
Yes, and it's happened in the past. The Electoral College is set up where every state casts their votes. They cast it all together. It's a winner-take-all with the exception of 2 states, Maine and Nebraska. So it is possible and it's happened, where you've had candidates lose the popular vote but win the election.
Are we in a situation where we could see a tie on election night, or a tie within the Electoral College?
Yeah, it would happen if we had 269 electoral votes for President Obama, 269 votes for Governor Romney. Then it would be kicked to Congress, and the House of Representatives, state by state, would vote on the President of the United States. And as constituted now, Republicans have a big upper hand in the House of Representatives. So Mitt Romney would win if the House were to determine who the President of the United States were to be. You look at the system for vice president, that's a role of the Senate. And the vice president is actually the president of the Senate. It would look like that Joe Biden would have a good chance of winning that Senate election for vice president. So there is a scenario where you have President Mitt Romney and Vice President Joe Biden.
What are your top 3 states that you're going to be watching on election night?
Well, obviously Florida and Ohio, but I'm going to be watching New Hampshire because the returns come in very early in New Hampshire. And if New Hampshire goes very early for Mitt Romney, it could be a long night for President Obama. Also Pennsylvania. It'll be fascinating to watch to see if Pennsylvania is close, if Romney somehow squeaks out a victory, or if it's called very early in the evening for President Obama, because that would be a warning sign for the Romney campaign that they may be in trouble.
Some intriguing possibilities there, Pat, to say the least. Are you ready for some more hanging chads in Florida?
No, they're not going to have any hanging chads. This isn't going to be close. They say it's close, but right now the momentum is clearly in Romney's direction. He's picking up steam, and, you know, we had an eminent pollster on the other day talking about Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is in play, and Romney's people in the super PACs supporting him are spending money in Pennsylvania. So it can very easily tip over, and it also means that they might wind up with a Republican senator instead of Bob Casey. I don't know exactly how that race comes out, but there are a number of Senate races, and Karl Rove was predicting that the Senate would shift to the Republicans. I'm meeting in a short while with my panel of experts to try to scope out exactly where the election is going and see what their conclusions are. But Lee, I don't think it's going to be close. I really believe that all the early balloting in Ohio and places like that is going clearly in Romney's favor. There's tremendous enthusiasm in the ranks. And I might add, among the evangelicals, there was an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal today about the evangelical support. The organization I founded, called the Christian Coalition, was very, very active when Bush was winning that election, and Ohio was a key state, and they had work on the precincts that people were not aware of that made the difference. I think the same thing is going to happen this time. There's a huge amount of enthusiasm, so we'll just see. But ladies and gentlemen, one more time, it's the question of turnout. The only poll that matters is the one that's going to take place on Tuesday, and that's when you go out to vote. So your vote is crucial. If you can vote early in these states where the voting is early, by all means do so. Get your vote in and make sure it gets counted. Lee.
You're not alone in your thinking there, in your prediction. Former Clinton campaign advisor Dick Morris is using terms like landslide in Romney's favor. We'll see. Well, turning overseas, the U.S. mission in Benghazi warned the U.S. State Department that the consulate could not defend itself against a coordinated attack. Fox News reports the cable was addressed to the office of the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. That warning was sent in a classified cable less than a month before the assault that killed 4 Americans, including Ambassador Chris Stevens. The cable was sent after an emergency meeting at the mission. The message said that al-Qaeda had training camps in Benghazi and that the State Department's senior security team did not believe the consulate could be protected. Unemployment in the Eurozone hit a record high at 11.6% in September. That's up from 11.5% in August. Last month, nearly 18.5 million people in the Eurozone were out of work, a sign that the economy there is deteriorating after a 3-year debt crisis. And it could signal harsher austerity measures. 5 Eurozone countries are in recession right now, Pat. Greece, Spain, Italy, Portugal, and Cyprus.
It's happening. And look, anybody who'll tell you we ought to be like Europe is out of their mind. The European socialism, the welfare state, doesn't work. There isn't enough money. Only God has unlimited funds. No government has them. And when the governments go broke, what happens is the essential services that people depend on begin to falter. You have close to home the garbage pickup, and then you have the utilities that sometimes are government owned. Then you have the police and the fire. Then you have the courts, and then you have joblessness because private enterprise doesn't provide enough jobs, and so it goes. Then you begin to get rioting in the streets. When you have youth unemployment as high as 50% in Spain, you have overall unemployment up to 25%. This is catastrophic. And there's no money to make the difference. And so the governments are saying we've got to pay off our debt, so what we're going to do is begin austerity, which is a double whammy. They have no room to maneuver. And the only way we can maneuver in this country is because we have a currency that everybody has to take, and the Fed has unlimited power to print money. But what they're doing now, this $40 billion a month of buying securities and so-called quantitative easing, is not the way to go. They're going to flood the currency with money. The Japanese government, by the way, is starting to say we've got to reinflate, so they're flooding the market, and the Japanese yen is beginning to sink. I was very fortunate to buy a double short yen. I'm sure you did the same thing.
Absolutely. I was first on the list.
Okay. Well, anyhow, them yens is in trouble, is what I tell you.
Is there any redemption in sight for Europe, for these countries?
No. The only thing they're going to have to do, there'll be massive defaults, and they're going to soldier along and try to make it. But my advice for Greece is, look, bite the bullet, repudiate some of your debt, cut out of some of these services you've been providing, get your house in order, and then let the private sector go. Cut the taxes that you've been laying on the people. Stop these stupid regulations. Let the private sector in Greece go, and they can sell their olives and their olive oil and all the stuff they sell. And the Greeks they can make it. But they can't make it tied into Europe, so they're going to break loose from Europe. And the whole Euro bloc, I think they want to hold together if at all possible, but Germany isn't going to carry that load all by itself, and that's what they're being asked to do.
The student judiciary of Tufts University in Boston has removed the official recognition of a Christian group. Tufts Christian Fellowship was told it violated the school's non-discrimination policy by requiring its leaders to follow, quote, basic biblical truths of Christianity. TCF is a chapter of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. The group is appealing the decision. The Tufts student newspaper reports the move blocks TCF from using the Tufts name in its title, scheduling events on campus, or receiving student funding. Back in 2000, the student judiciary tried to do the same thing to TCF after a student complained she was blocked from leadership because of her sexual orientation. The Pakistani teenager shot by the Taliban is receiving support now from some high-powered politicians. Britain's foreign secretary and leaders from Pakistan and the United Arab Emirates visited the hospital in Birmingham, England, where Malala Yousafzai is recovering. They met with the girl's father and reaffirmed their resolve to work together to end such terrorist violence. The girl was shot earlier this month after speaking out against the Taliban and supporting women's education. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.